Hey guys, Snowflarky Zemos here today with another Master Duel deck profile this is my Malefic deck. Malefics are a set of cards that were played by the anime villain Paradox in the anime film Bonds Beyond Time, and they revolve around making like corrupted dragons of some of the iconic, uh, corrupted versions of the iconic Yu-Gi-Oh dragons and things like that, as well as this little gear thing. But basically it comes down to kind of being a really big beater deck because a lot of the monsters are easily to summon and have huge attack powers, and you combine that with powerful floodgates that slow the game down, and it makes the high attack powers matter a lot more, and poke down your opponent. So with that said, let's get into the card by card. First, I'm playing 3 copies of Malefic Paradox gear. This is one of the newer supports that came out a little bit ago. If a face-up field spell is on the field, which field spells are very important in this deck in general, you contribute this card to special summon a Malefic Parallel gear from your deck and then add a Malefic monster from your deck to your hand, except Malefic Paradox gear. So that's pretty cool. This gets 2 cards right out of your deck and both cards that you want to see. Awesome stuff. And then if a Malefic monster would be, if you would want to special summon a Malefic monster, which you normally have to do by banishing its counterpart from the deck or extra deck, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, but you can only use this effect of Malefic Paradox Gear once per turn. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of the Malefic Parallel Gear. At 3, this card bricks too much. I basically only want to be pulling it out of the deck, and it's very rare that I'm going to resolve 3 Paradox Gears. So we're just playing 2 Malefic Parallel Gear. This card is a 2-star tuner that just says when this card, using this card as synchro material, the other synchro material must be a Malefic monster from your hand. So that's pretty cool, interesting condition, and it just means you summon this guy, and if you got a Malefic monster in your hand, you can go into a synchro, which is pretty sick. And of course, when Paradox Gear adds you a Malefic monster from your deck to your hand, you're just going to get that for free. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Malefic Stardust Dragon, one of the better Malefic cards that we have. It's a 2500 attack monster with 8 stars. It can be special summoned from the extra deck by banishing a Stardust Dragon. That's how Malefic works. You banish their counterpart from the deck or extra deck, and then you summon them for free. There can only be 1 Malefic monster on the field. Phase-up field spells cannot be destroyed by card effects, and other monsters you control cannot declare an attack. If there is no face-up field spell on the field, destroy this card. That last bit of text is stuff that's just general for the Malefic monsters. The fact that other monsters you control can attack and they need a field spell. The face-up field spells cannot be destroyed by card effects is unique to Stardust Dragon, but something you're going to see a bit of. Next, I'm playing 3 Malefic Cyber End Dragon. 4,000 attack, 10 star. Must be special summoned by banishing Cyber End Dragon from our extra deck. There can be only 1 Malefic monster on the field and others cannot attack. And of course, if there's no face-up field spell, destroy this card. So, quite annoying, but we have ways to get around some of those effects so that we don't have to worry as much about the limitations. Next, we have 3 copies of Malefic Paradigm Dragon. This is another one of the newer cards that came out for this archetype post its original launch. So this card must be special summoned from your hand by banishing a Malefic monster from your extra deck, while Malefic Paradigm Dragon is not on the field. If Malefic World is not on the field, destroy this card. And then, of course, once per turn, you can send a Malefic card from your deck to the graveyard to return one of your banished level 8 Synchro monsters to the extra deck. Then you can special summon that monster from the extra deck, and also you can only attack with Malefics for the rest of this turn. So that's pretty cool. That's a good way to easily get out Stardust Dragon, which is another reason why Stardust Dragon is run. And this is just a really easy to summon guy for 4,000. We have the Malefic Paradox Dragon, which is a synchro that the archetype has that we're happy to get rid of because it's not too useful to make. But of course, any of these guys can also be summoned with the Malefic Paradox gear in the grave, which is pretty sick. And last for our monsters, I'm playing 1 copy of Malefic Truth Dragon. Can't be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by its own effect, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. Essentially, if a Malefic monster you control except Truth Dragon is destroyed by battle or card effect, we can pay half our life points to special summon this card from the hand or graveyard. That graveyard recursion means that we only need 1 of this, especially since Malefic cards are pretty easily searchable. And 5,000 attack is very nice. Of course, it has all the other Malefic text. Only one can be on the field. There's no field spell. We destroy this card. And then, of course, if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can destroy all face-up monsters your opponent control. So that's a good way to open up the board to OTK an opponent. And that is it for the monsters. Next, going into our spells, I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. There's not a lot that is done in the extra deck other than banishing cards, so if I max out on all the copies of the synchros that I need to banish to summon a Malefic monster, Extravagance is still fine. We can banish 3 to 6 random extra deck cards face down and draw a card for every 3 banished. That card advantage is just so nice, especially when we're really digging for floodgates. So I'm willing to make the risk, especially when Paradox Gear can be used if, for instance, we lost all copies of any one of these extra deck monsters. So pretty good. I don't get punished by it often. Some people like to go with Allure of Darkness, which has its own benefits. But I'm just working the Extravagance wagon now. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Malefic Selector. This card's pretty cool. We banish 2 Malefic cards from the graveyard to add 2 Malefic cards from the deck to our hand, except Malefic Selector, with different names from each other and from the banished cards. So it's pretty cool. There's a good way to get Malefics into the grave, especially if you get a Paradox Gear and you have a lot of Malefics on hand. Selector can just turn that into adding 2 cards. Works with Extravagance because the cards are added, not drawn. So, that's not so bad. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Malefic World. This is the field spell for the Malefic deck. During the draw phase, instead of conducting your normal draw, reveal 3 Malefic cards from your deck, and your opponent adds randomly 1 of them to your hand and shuffles the rest back. So pretty cool. If you're looking for a specific Malefic card, maybe you want to get gear and all 3 gears are in the deck, you can do that. The only thing to note is this effect can be Ash Blossom, so you might lose out entirely on your draw if you decide to use this effect, which kind of stinks. But, you gotta weigh that option out. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Malefic Territory. This is the last of the second wave of, well, actually, I don't know if it's the last, but the last of the big stuff for the second wave of support that came out. Malefic Territory, of course, is a continuous spell that says when this card is activated, activate Malefic World from your deck. While that card is in the field zone, neither player can target a card in the field zone with card effects. The Malefic monster's effect, there can be only 1 Malefic monster on the field, becomes there can be only 1 face-up Malefic monster of the same name. So that's pretty nice. Once this card's on the field, it means we can have Paradigm Dragon, and we can have Cyberand Dragon, and we can have a Stardust Dragon, which is pretty sweet. And, of course, during the battle phase, negate the effect of face-up Malefic monsters on the field. So that basically gets around the fact that only 1 Malefic can attack. Now all the Malefics are going to be able to attack, which is pretty cool. Interesting to note that this card is not once per turn, so you can play Malefic Territory, get a world out the deck, play a second Malefic Territory if you got both in the hand, just to thin another Malefic world out the deck. Now do note, if you play Malefic Territory and try to cycle a Malefic world out of the deck, but already have Malefics on the field, it's going to count as the field spell being gone, and they are going to be destroyed. So you do got to play around with that. Make sure you do that before. And last, I'm playing a copy of Malefic Divide. Target a Malefic monster in your graveyard. Special summon it, ignoring its conditions, but its effects are negated, and also banish it during the end phase. So this is just a nice card to have as a one-of, because if you got some Malefics in the grave, you've been doing some damage, your opponent's open, this card is a game ender, because a lot of these Malefic monsters, as we've said, have 4,000 attack, so just being able to special summon an extra 4,000 attack for damage can close out a game. And that is it for the spell cards. Getting into our traps, I'm playing 1 copy of Malefic Tune. Pretty good trap card. If a face-up Malefic monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, draw 2 cards. So that's pretty nice. And then, of course, if a face-up Malefic monster you control is destroyed while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard to add a Malefic monster from your deck to your hand. So this card can get you a lot of cards. Draws you 2 cards, searches you a card later. That is pretty good stuff. Next, I'm going to talk about all the floodgates that I'm playing. This deck is ripe for floodgates, and we're going to take full advantage of them because mostly our monsters are just slow, big monsters with high attack. They don't have any negates or any combo effects on them. So it means this deck can get hosed by combo unless we slow the game down to a crawl. That's where these big monsters can really shine. So I'm playing 2 Rivalry of the Warlords. Each player can only control 1 type of monster. All our big cards are mostly, dragons. Cyberend is not, but, it limits a lot of decks in what they can do. Next, we have 2 copies of Skill Drain. Oh, this deck was so much better when we had it at 3, and is better in the TCG because it's at 3. But we'll still take 2. We pay 1,000 life points to negate the effect of all face-up monsters while they are face-up on the field. So that's nice. That deals a lot with the Malefic problem of not being able to attack with multiple monsters. Skill Drain takes care of that. And of course, when effects on the field are negated, the 4,000 attacks reign supreme. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Goes and Match. Each player can only control 1 attribute of monster and send all other face-up monsters to the graveyard. All Malefic cards are dark, which is pretty sweet. And so, you know, we're not punished by it. And if a deck needs multiple attributes, they're going to be punished by it. So that is very nice. And lastly, to make up for some of the lost floodgates with all these being at 2, I am playing 2 copies of Summon Limit. I'm considered playing Teak Boo because maybe we only need 1 monster at a time, but I like to be able to close games out quicker, and Summon Limit's pretty nice. It's not too often unless you're going for a synchro play that you can make more than 2 summons on a turn. A Paradox Gear can technically get you like 3 summons and whatnot, but Summon Limit usually is powerful enough to win against a lot of combo decks that it's worth flipping up and, you know, just slowing down a little bit, just going with big bungus beatdown. So those are all the floodgates. They become the main win con of the deck because this deck has a lot of big monsters, but we need to make sure we don't get hosed out by combos that just remove everything. And that's what these cards do. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. This is just my be safe button for anything. Pays half our life points to negate a monster summon or spell or trap is activated. We want to protect these floodgates, and so Solemn Judgment can do that. Also has the flexibility to maybe negate a normal summon after we've worn our opponent down, and just leave them open for us to attack lots of, you know, with our big monsters. And then last, I'm playing 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. Labyrinths and Runics and stuff just came out in Master Duel, so I am seeing back row decks everywhere. You know, people love Labyrinth. You know, Eldritch is still possible. Best of One definitely fosters back row, and we want to have some cards to deal with it. So Heavy Storm Duster is just a nice card. It targets up to 2 spells or traps on the field, destroys them in exchange for a battle phase, which is usually not a punishment because we're usually playing it on our opponent's turn. It's pretty great. You can react to field spells that are going to search, and if, you know, decent as a 1-for-1, and of course always nice to get plus advantage off it. So just pretty good stuff. Overall, that is the main deck. Going over the extra deck real quick, we're playing max copies of Cyber End Dragon. Very thankful this card's in the structure deck, so I didn't have to craft and try to open up Cyber End Dragon packs for it. Definitely one of the reasons I committed to finishing this deck. But Cyber End Dragon is nice. Basically, it's in here just to be able to be banished for Malefic Cyber End Dragon. We also have Stardust Dragon for the same reason, although Stardust can be summoned from the extra deck thanks to the Paradigm Dragons effect. So it can add a Stardust Dragon to our board, which is just a nice protection, because when a card or effect is activated that would destroy a card or cards on the field, we contribute it to negate the activation. Now, during the end phase, if this you know, if this effect was activated, you could special summon this card from the graveyard, but we're not properly synchro summoning this, so it's just a one-time negate. Maybe Paradigm Dragon can send it back another way. But it's a pretty cool additional thing to have, a good additional body, etc. Next, we're playing 3 copies of Malefic Paradox Dragon, which is pretty cool. When this card is synchro summoned, you can select a synchro monster in either player's graveyard and special summon it, which is pretty cool if we do decide to properly summon a synchro. There are some good choices to make, like you can make Mathmech Final Sigma pretty easy. I got this Time Lord guy in here that's pretty nice. So if you got level 10 or level 12 synchros to make, this card's nice because you can, you know, do that. You can get the ones back from the graveyard, which is pretty cool. And of course, it has the same thing as the Malefic monsters effects. You know, Malefic Paradox Dragon, there can only be 1 on the field. And of course, if Malefic World's not on the field, destroy this card. What's nice about this is it says there can only be 1 face-up Malefic Paradox Dragon, so you can have Paradox Dragon and another Malefic monster without Malefic territory. Not only one's going to be able to attack, but that's fine. Paradox Dragon is also the card that is intended to be banished for Paradigm Dragon, which is pretty cool. So it's good to have as a 3 ofs because we don't want to lose them all off of Extravagance. Next, the only other synchro I really have at the time to make for this is Time Lord Progenitor here. It requires a tuner and a non-tuner, which is pretty nice. That means Paradox Gear and Stardust can make it. Pretty cool card. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. You take no battle damage, typical Time Lord stuff. And then at the end of the damage step, if this card was special summoned from the extra deck and was battled, you can activate this effect to banish all monsters your opponent controls. Also for the rest of this turn, have the battle damage they take. So that's pretty cool. That's awesome. And then during the end phase, if this effect was activated, you can special summon as many monsters as possible that you banished with this card effect to your opponent's field. So, it returns them, but it basically removes them for a bit so you can get into the attack. Good option to have. I had it, so I might as well. The rest of it is just filler in case I wanted to play some Waking the Dragon targets. Waking the Dragon is a good trap card I can play in a back row deck like this so that if my opponent Lightning Storms or Harpy's Feather Dusters, I can punish them because when that card's sent to the grave, I can special summon any monster from my deck or extra deck, and there's really powerful extra deck targets, something like Last Warrior from Another Planet that neither player can summon monsters. Naturia Exteria, which is just a non-once per turn negate of any spell or trap card, which is sick. And of course, Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon, which is just a 3,500 attack monster unaffected by card effects. So just some space to fill. I don't have Waking the Dragon, but it's good to have as a target. And, this will definitely be stuff to be filled with other things. Geomathematic Final Sigma will be really good when I get it, and stuff like that. But that is it for the extra deck. So here's a replay to go show the deck in action. We are going first against our opponent, who is playing a Sword Soul deck. Looking at our hand, it's pretty good. Malefic World is nice. You usually want to see Malefic Territory instead to just pull Malefic World out the deck and give it more effects. But we also got Pot of Extravagance, which is going to give us some cards. Malefic Selector, which is good follow-up. And the real reason this hand is good is that we do have one summon limit, so we can get our Malefic set up and then, have a floodgate to hopefully hose out our opponent, stall us for time while we poke with our big monsters. So we're going to start by playing our Extravagance, banishing 6 cards, to draw 2, very nice, Goes in Match and Solemn Judgment. So protection for the floodgates. This pretty much turned this into kind of the ideal hand. So, we didn't banish all our Stardust Dragons, which of course would be very unlikely with one Extravagance. So we can get our Stardust on the field. That will protect Malefic World here. And of course, we're going to set our 3 back row pretty solid. Our opponent is going to play on their turn. They're going to summon, they're going to start by playing Pot of Desires, banish some cards. Now they are going to grab their Tenyi Spirit Ashina. And of course, when they play Tenyi Spirit, I'm going to hit Goes in Match because I don't want them to make the Tenyi Link 1, or I want them to be stuck on lights, especially because I can easily get a 4,000 attack monster to beat over it. They are, of course, just going to play Heavenly Dragon Cycle, get rid of it. Now they're going to go into Adhara, and I, of course, am just going to play Summon Limit that, has them limited, and this is where Solemn is important here. I want to protect my card and be able to attack with multiple Malefics, so I'm just grabbing the Malefic territory now. So that I will be ready on a follow-up turn, assuming I can stall them out. Now they're going to play Sword Soul Blackout. They're going to try to destroy their Adhara and our 2 floodgates that are stopping them from playing. But we did have Solemn Judgment. This is, why it's kind of the ideal hand. And, we're going to get rid of it. We're going to set another face-down card. It's Malefic Selector, which we can't use, but it's going to bluff. And our opponent, out of frustration, no more outs to the floodgates, is going to scoop. And that's basically how it works. So that is it for my Malefic deck. Definitely a deck I enjoy playing. I really love monsters that have big, dumb attack powers, and Malefics embody it. These 4,000 attacks are so sick to see on monsters that are so easily to summon, and I'm a big fan of it. Luckily, these floodgates give us the ability to actually win some games, which is pretty nice. And overall, it's cool to kind of, it's also nice flavor that a lot of these are just still iconic monsters. Stardust, Cyber End, cool stuff like that makes them extra cool. And just a fun deck to have. Didn't take too much investment, just had to open some packs, and I already had some good luck with some of this, so very glad to have it. Thanks for checking out the deck profile. I will catch you all in the next one.